As I was preparing this video presentation, I read a very thought-provoking article entitled, "Controlling Anger Before It Controls You." I like that title, Controlling Anger Before It Controls You. And the opening sentence in the article is certainly accurate. It simply reads, "We all know what anger is, and we've all felt it, whether as a fleeting annoyance or as full-fledged rage." The next paragraph, probably written from a secular point of view, also grabbed my attention. Anger is a completely normal, usually healthy, human emotion. But when it gets out of control and turns destructive, it can lead to problems. Problems at work, in your personal relationships, and in the overall quality of your life. And it can make you feel as though you're at the mercy of an unpredictable and powerful emotion. To be honest, I don't think I can really improve on those comments. Though this article was published by the American Psychological Association, the content correlates very well with what we read in the Bible. For example, there's the story of Jesus who became angry when he confronted the money changers in the temple in Jerusalem. Tables and coins were flying everywhere. There's the intense argument between Paul and Barnabas regarding John Mark, and the Greek word Luke used in recording this event indicates it was a very intense situation. And let's not forget that jealous rage that led Cain to kill Abel, an intense emotion that has led to horrible homicides throughout history. As I read more of this article, I couldn't have agreed more with some of the practical suggestions for controlling anger. In fact, some were in perfect alignment with Scripture, such as what they call cognitive restructuring, which simply means changing the way we think. In fact, in this chapter I've called Handling Anger Appropriately, I've shared some proverbs that really support the suggestions in this article for anger management. Here they are. He who is slow to anger has great understanding. He who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. A man's discretion makes him slow to anger. Let me share a personal story that relates to the truth in these proverbs. I received a telephone call one Sunday after church. A young man on the other end of the line was livid. He verbally attacked the professors at the seminary where I taught. He was angry at the spiritual leaders of my own church, and he was angry at me. Now, no question, bad things were definitely happening in this young man's life, and he blamed us for the loss of his job as well as his family problems. To be honest, I was getting angrier by the second. But then, as my emotions were really beginning to churn, I began to ask myself some questions. What is really bothering this young man? Why is he being so vulnerable? After all, he was really opening himself up to serious rejection. As I thought about the answers to these questions, I actually began to regain my own emotional composure. I could feel it beginning to happen. I was able to listen more objectively and respond with concern rather than my own anger, and to calmly suggest that we really needed to get together and talk. Almost instantly, I sensed his own anger beginning to dissipate. In retrospect, I experienced the truth in another proverb, Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Well, we met, and he shared the true story. He was really angry at himself, and at his wife particularly. His world was falling apart. He had lost his job, but primarily because of his own mistakes. At that point, I was able to gently remind him that if he had been honest with me in the first place, it would have been much easier for both of us. I'll never forget his response. He smiled sheepishly, literally through tears, and said, "I know, but I want to thank you for loving me enough to tell me what is wrong with me. Well, I've shared this story simply to illustrate what the secularists might call cognitive restructuring. First, on my part, in controlling my own anger, I was able to help this young man control his own anger, to help him start thinking more clearly about the cause of his own problem. The Proverbs call it discretion, knowledge, understanding. But let me say one more thing. Though there is some great truth in this article by the American Psychological Association, there's a very important omission when it comes to a biblical point of view. It's the concept of sin. Paul, in his letter to the Ephesians in chapter 4, verse 26, said this, "Be angry, and yet do not sin." This simply means that there is anger that is not sinful, but there is anger that is sinful. What does this really mean? Well, hopefully you'll find answers in this chapter I've entitled Handling Anger Appropriately. And once you've read it and discussed this God-created capacity with other men, I'm confident you'll discover some very practical ways, as Paul said, to be angry and yet do not sin.